Welcome back, everybody, to your daily update on the state of the Malazan Empire. And yes, we're finally back with Malazan. Book 4, Dust of Dreams. Final, like the first two chapters. And it's raining outside, so we're back in that really chaotic hole under my bed where I usually live. And yeah, let's get right into it. Ooh, cheers. All right. We are in book 4, Dust of Dreams, and while Dust of Dreams has 24 chapters like all the other books as well, this one doesn't have a final book called The Dust of Dreams because obviously the structure is different this time around. It also doesn't have an epilogue because it's just the first half of, Dust of Dreams and The Crippled God because of reasons that Erikson actually explains at the beginning of the book, and I kind of didn't mention it. Also, this is a rather long chapter, and a lot of stuff is happening here. Remember, like we ended with the return of Draconis and stuff like that, so we're basically at the end of Toll the Hounds as well right now, and a lot of like chapter 20, not 20, 19, which is what I'm talking about now. It's taken up by things happening now that Draconis is back. And there's a lot going on there. First, we have all these different the Elder Gods figuring out what's going on now that Draconis is there. Which, there's that theory that Draconis like engineered all the things with the breaking up of Dragnipur and so forth. And, well, hard to say if that's true or not. I would say from like the last scenes in Toll the Hounds with him and Drake in the sword, it's pretty unlikely that that is the case, but Mael puts forth that idea, and it seems to at least worry Kilmandaras. But that's sort of what's going on there. A lot of speculations and shit like that. But that's not so much what I wanted to talk about here today. What I want to talk about today, like one big thing that I feel is important, is what happens with the snake and the Forkrul Assail. Now, we don't know that much about the Forkrul Assail yet, but we already know that they are very much about just judging things, which is not the same as justice. Obviously, but here's the thing: when Badal manages to push them back, and I feel there's something here that is very important to look at, and that's the ongoing struggle between certainty and doubt, and the power of words. Now, we already learned that apparently the Forkrul Assail have the power of their holy voice, or their voice, with which they can influence other people, humans, and force them to do all kinds of stuff, like usually kneel down and kill them, but that's Forkrul Assail for you. But I want to go a bit deeper there because I think the idea there is that it's important that this is the voice, because one thing that we need to understand is that certainty is very, very attractive. And obviously, the Forkrul Assail have absolute certainty because, they bring judgment, and judgment only works with certainty in a way. So they have absolute certainty, and they put that certainty into words, and those words have power. Quite literally in Malazan, because they obviously can use that to control people. But I want to look at the fact that this is something that also happens outside of Malazan, right? When we talk about rhetoric, when we talk about writing down things, political things, for example, propaganda and so forth, that works because of words that push certainties, the certainty of the author. It's very much that makes, for example, that makes authoritarian regimes, that makes very brutal structured like systems like fascism. Also, your Soviet style or North Korean communism. Like these like brutal structures, they are built of certainties, and these certainties are transported. Transport is the wrong word, but they are spread through words, and through those words and those certainties, people are forced to, or like, yeah, forced to do terrible things. I feel that's sort of the metaphor that we find here with the four-color sail and the power of voice. Now, when we look at what Badal does when she goes back against that, is that she like that the way to battle certainty is by doubt. Doubt is not necessarily a bad thing. I would argue it's a good thing up to a point. Obviously, there is a danger in falling too deep into doubt as well. The idea of Pyrrhonic skepticism has certain brings certain problems with it, which is the ultimate version of doubt. But doubt is the only weapon against certainty, and certainty, as I've tried to explain here, is by nature dangerous and wrong, because there's very few things in life that are certain outside of maybe mathematics, and even there, but like basic mathematics is something where I would accept certainty in those regards, because obviously it built up of definitions that are built up on axioms. It's not like based on any outside things. And that's I guess the idea where certainty comes from. Certainty can only come from like making your own definitions and making those your own fundamental like basis, and from there on just building up your own certainties. And that is obviously not how you deal with the world, because the world is uncertain, the world is messy, and all of these other things. So doubt is necessary as a weapon against certainty, and it can be powerful. It can be more powerful than certainty if used in the correct way. Obviously, the way for that, once again, is words. And once again, I would argue that this is more than just the fight between Badal and the four-color sail. This is once again one of these instances where we need to look at how we deal with things in our life, and doubting certainty is one of those. The other thing there is to voice those doubts carefully, to not make those doubts certainties themselves. That's sort of the nature of always doubting. I feel that's what gets lost in a lot of like today's politics, where people are like, I'm just questioning these informations. But that's usually not what's happening. It's usually that the people saying that have their own already certainty, and they're just using the semblance of doubt to push their certainty, and that's sort of the problem there. So please don't put this into like that kind of political way. But I feel the idea that is like shown in that conflict between Badal and the inquisitors of the four-color sail is that certainty to the point of self-destruction, which is what the four-color sail are doing in the desert because they're almost dead, is obviously wrong, morally wrong, and wrong in every other way as well. And the only weapon to fight it is doubt and questioning in an open and calm way. That's where the power of certainty breaks. If you refuse to give in to certainty, if you refuse that, the refusal is very important there. But that obviously can't be the end. You still need to make something new, which is sort of where that conflict with Badal, like that whole part ends when they enter the city, the children. It's time to make something new, because doubt alone can't be everything as well. All right, next bit. Um, we should talk about, like, I guess this is the first chapter where we actually learn what the Bone Hunters are up to. Like fully explained that their plan seems to be to go to Kalance and free the crippled god, which, yeah, is huge. But we also understand that it is the correct thing. And this I feel is one of those things where we see like the absolute like brilliant skill of Steven Erikson in writing these fantasy books and writing this fantasy series, is that when we first learn of the crippled god in Memories of Ice, and yeah, he gets mentioned before, but we first meet him in Memories of Ice. We see him as the power behind the Panyan Domain. He's as brutal a fantasy adversary as you can find. The same goes on with when we look at what's it called in Midnight Tides once again, like also in House of Chains, but he big shows up big again in Midnight Tides when he brings the sword, makes gets the sword into Rulan's hands and stuff like that. The crippled god is absolutely an evil force at that point. But over time, and it happens already, like I think in Reaper's Gale, we have a long conversation about the whole thing when Silchas, I think, is talking to the Krishnan in the pass, like in the pass over the mountains towards Blue Rose, and that's where slowly over the books, Steven Erikson flips that script and shows us like that there is a motivation, there's a reason for the crippled god to be the kind of being he is. He's alien. He was forced down to the earth, to the world, against his will. He's chained there. He can't, but he cannot not hurt Burn because he is alien, and because he has all these believers that are also miserable people because of being broken. That once again and some of his worshippers are doing terrible things. That, on the other hand, makes him even more spiteful, more vicious, and lashing out because of his pain and the pain of his believers. And that's something that you need to answer with compassion, because any other way to answer it will only increase the misery, right? Will only increase the misery of the crippled god, through that, the misery of everyone on Burn as well, on the world as well. So that I feel is what happens over time, and now we see that, or learn that the Bone Hunters probably. I mean, we still don't know. It's just like that the usual like guessing kind of people like Bottle and the other mages think that that's what the adjunct plans to do, is to free the crippled god, to and Cinta realizes, like when she says that, it is just to do that. And yeah, it is just to do that, and it has to be done, and the Bone Hunters will not get anything in return. It's once again this idea that compassion has to be outside the whole system of transactions, right? You don't get anything for doing the right thing here. You might even get like punished for doing the right thing, but you still have to do it. And you have to do it unwitnessed, outside of any, even outside of all the glory that this may bring you in like the afterlife or whenever. No, but this has to be done, and any other considerations are irrelevant at this point. So yeah, there's that. And obviously there's a lot of like jumping around between how the mages are feeling bad because Draconis is back, and um, all of that. I think that there's like the awakening, the reawakening of Bryce Benedict is something that may, on the other hand, show the cost of death that people like Mike's book reviews and other people have discussed about, like the cost of death being diminished by people coming back, and so forth. There's like the argument there is they never come back fully. They are changed. It's a yeah, it's a I don't want to say transcendental, but it's a changing, yeah, probably transcendental thing. Death. It takes the soul, which by definition there is immortal, and even if a soul comes back from Hood's realm, it is a changed soul. No one ever comes back fully. Something stays behind because these dying is once again something that leaves a mark on a soul, and we now see the difference between that when Bryce actually fully awakens because Hood being dead. We also once again come to that whole thing that I think I spoke about before. Yeah, I spoke about before when Khalith met Whiskey Jack for the first time. Now we have the conversation between Hedge and Gessler about the fact that the bridge burners under Whiskey Jack are now basically have for now taken over Hood's job, which is guarding the gate to the realm of the dead. And the fact that those are compassionate human beings and also have like a lot of different faces, not just the one face of Hood, which has been like, rather impersonal, at least from the outside, although we obviously know that Hood is so much more than just the skull, right? So yeah, there's that. Then we need to look at the meeting between Ublalapong and Draconis. And I just love it because in his whole simplicity and general, like, I want to say naive goodness. I mean, Ublalapong is a good person through and through. There's nothing even slightly evil or whatever in his soul. He's good through and through. Now, you may argue that is because he's rather simple, but that's not the point. But what he does here, I guess, that when you have that situation when Draconis shows up and and Ublalapong is like, I need to save the world, and Draconis just like, and here I was planning to kill it. But this kind of makes Draconis, in a way, decide to walk with Ublalapong for probably reasons of his own. But I guess one of them is just to, spend time with that person, maybe showing someone like Draconis that the world is not yet irredeemably lost and needs destruction, which, makes him different from someone like Olar Ethil. Speaking of which, and I just like, before we go to Olar Ethil, I just love that end when they walk off and that last sentence, like, everybody needs a friend, and you have Ublalapong and Draconis walk into the sunset. Not a sunrise, but still, that's just glorious. I just love that. But yeah, speaking of Olar Ethil, first of all, speaking about the conversations or like the thing going on with Tool. Tool is on his way to apparently not first of all murder all the Barghast, murder all the humans, but first of all to find out why Olar Ethil brought him back, which may not be the best thing happening to Olar Ethil. But the way he manages to gain like the support of the T'Lana mass, who say like, we are also awakened, but we will not just like follow you unless you ask us to, and he doesn't even do that. And the way he gets that, I feel the interesting thing there is once again the tiredness of war that we see in that conversation about the war with the Jaghut, when Tool says that he has forsworn that war. And that conversation between those two T'Lana mass about him being defeated by the need for more killing and more fighting, and that being the quality that is admirable. That I feel is a very, very powerful scene. So we still, they decide to follow him to find out what's going on and maybe pull one over Olar Ethel, which she has certainly deserved, I feel. So yeah, there's that. Um, what else should we talk about? Certainly Tanakalion and Krukava. And I love the fact that we only see Krukava through other people so far, mostly through Tanakalion, and how we see that, and the way we can see how Tanakalion is descending further and further into obsession and is becoming more and more the thing that he kind of suspects or accuses Krukava of being. I mean, he basically thinks that she is searching for glory, and he thinks that he is not doing that because he has accepted the betrayal and everything. He has accepted all of that. It will, and so forth. The being unwitnessed is important for him. And the problem that we see here is that we can totally talk ourselves into something like that, and that will at least as cloud our judgment as much as maybe the seeing of maybe the seeking for glory. And the problem there is that it's one of those things that the the trope of the strong silent type falling for that. He's like, I'm gonna do the right thing because no one will see it, and I alone will be the one who knows that I have done the right thing, and so forth. And I'm not sure if that's like a typical masculine thing. I've certainly known a lot of dudes who go that way sometimes, and it's dangerous. And we see how far it can go with Tanakalion because from day to day, from time to time, we revisit him as a viewpoint character. He's deeper in that obsession with Krugava, and it certainly has tainted his judgment at this point. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where this all will be going in the future. What else is there? Obviously, the meeting between what's her name? Silch's Ruin Rodilal, who is now Riot LA's, and Olar Ethil and Torren for once, because Torren stands up to Olar Ethil because Torren has something that Olar Ethil has lost. And I feel this is interesting to look at because where Olar Ethil wants the destruction of everyone because of reasons, Torren also says that he doesn't mind like full on destruction. But when she goes off and tries to hurt Silcha's Ruin with her knowledge of the death of Anamanda Rake, and just keeps on pushing him and hurting him, that's when Torrent stands up up to her and just knocks her out. And that shows that he has still like that essential core of humanity and compassion for someone like Silcha's Ruin whom he has never met before. There is that the general discussion of like passive and like active, or at least like attacking and defending societies, is one small one that I feel is interesting to look at, because it shows there are like within different societies. I wouldn't put them into like country kind of societies, national states or whatever societies these days, but when you look at specific groups, you can very much like look at that, and you have like the attacking group that is always attacking because of fear and so forth. And I'm totally not saying that this is more like the people from the right side of the political spectrum. And then you have on the other side the defenders, the defending kind of society or group, that is slowly silencing like people within its own ranks and so forth. And I'm totally not saying that's something that we see within the left sometimes, but yeah, maybe think about that some more. Um, I yeah, that bit I feel is one that is very much an interesting discussion to look at, like characters and how these are connected to specific ways of thinking, feeling, and so forth, and how such specific ways of thinking and personal ways then feed into something larger, into like a society. But obviously, always with outliers and exceptions, which you know makes sense, but we so often forget that when we start to generalize. So yeah, there's that. We also have the point where Setok and the kids meet up with another group. We'll see where that is going, but we learn more about bowls and more about bowls. I will be following that line in the future. We'll see where that goes. I feel it's something that I might know more about if I had read Carcanas, so that's something that I will obviously do at some point. Yeah, I feel I've sort of rambled enough for today. I'll be back tomorrow with the next chapters. Maybe I'll remember what I forgot to talk about, and I'm pretty sure I forgot about a huge, big thing. I'm just not sure what it is. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll know more tomorrow. Anyway, until then, have a great Monday. Have a great start to the week, and I'll be back tomorrow with more Dust of Dreams. Until then, cheers.